Flintlock weapons were widely used on the frontier until the mid-19th century. A flintlock is a simple mechanism that uses a clamped piece of flintstone to strike a steel plate, sparking flash powder on the side of the gun, which in turn ignites the powder charge inside the barrel. The shot had to be accurate. Reloading could take a while. It was an art. And making the weapon was an art as well.
If he wants to be an Indian or a cowboy.
Don't know. I don't know if I want to be a cowboy or an Indian. This is J.P. Beck.
That's a good looking.
If you go to the Fraser Arms Museum in Louisville, Kentucky, on the second floor they have George Washington's rifle. And J.P. Beck made a rifle for George Washington that looks identical to this one here. This one's in 45 caliber, obviously flintlock rifle, and it was J.P. Beck worked for the Committee of Safety during the Revolutionary War, and he made rifles of the early type here with the wooden sliding patch box. This type of a Revolutionary War gun, pre-Revolutionary War gun that was made without much decorative work on it here. You don't see much patch box. You don't see the engraving and carving on here like you see on the Beck piece here that has a beautiful carving on it here, like you might see. Call that Rococo carving, like you might go over to Colonial Williamsburg and see the Chippendale furniture there. Is all that decorative arts that was put on them. Even during wartime, they were doing that there on miniguns, and others left for war very plain like this. This little step off in the wrist right here is a very early trait too. That goes back into this type of gun was made from 1750s up to the 1770s, and it's made of walnut instead of the maple. And of course we were standing underneath the walnut tree. That's why I brought a walnut stock piece here to kind of show the kids when we're doing this program through the week. And then the one in the middle here is a Kentucky rifle in the Golden Age time period when the beautiful curly maple wood was being used. See the curl in the wood here? Some people call it fiddleback maple because the back of every violin is made of this kind of wood. And that's what the violin carvers make this beautiful tone of the when you drag a bow across the strings, that's what the tone comes from, is that back, that curly maple back is what gives you the resonant tone. And of course, as a gunsmith, I consider that I'm making a beautiful instrument too with by using the same wood that the violin makers are using. And this is in the Golden Age time period. Obviously, it has the brass patch box, and then you have a lot of engraving on it. This is the type of gun that was made around 1810 to 1812. In the Golden Age, what we call the long rifle. And the brass patch box is a strictly American innovation into the gunsmithing art. The wooden sliding patch box came from our European gunsmiths, the Austrian, German, and Swiss gun makers that brought the German Jaeger. Here, this is a carryover, this wooden sliding butt trap. Of course, here you find that moisture can swell that up. Summertime you might not be able to open it up, and because it swells up. Wintertime you can sit in there and rattle.
Yeah.
And so wood it's not the very best. So, and it could also, this little catch could be released, and you could be walking along. You actually lose that part of the gun too. And this is a innovation here. You can't lose that. And weather is not nearly as affected on the brass, so it can always be, it will always be there, and it also leaves a beautiful place for the carving and for the engraving to be done on it. Of course, I use sheet brass and sheet silver and saw out like this. Here was truly traditional. Some people call them the Hunter Star, but actually these people were quite religious too, and this was the Star of Bethlehem.
Oh, yeah.
By the gun makers. They were religiously oppressed in these Central European countries, and they had to do little things that some of the hierarchy didn't realize what they were doing. Even in their carving, these little volutes in the carving here had Mary cradling the baby Jesus. and this is in the earth because they couldn't openly express their religion.
How long would it take you to make a gun like that?
A gun like this, after you assemble lock and barrel and a very fine piece of curly maple wood, you have about 100 to 150 hours, according to how much engraving, how much carving you're going to do on the piece.
Wow. Well, you know, the big thing now seems to be black powder.
Inline action.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've come up with new kind of stuff. Well, it's sort of like the old Indian when the old Indian white man came to the old Indian and said, "White man says, I would like to have enough ground to lay my blanket down." And the white man says to the Indian. So the Indian says, "Well, sure, that sounds logical." So after he gets that agreement, he unravels his blanket and puts it around about 80 acres of ground. And that's what they're doing with hunting. They've done it with bows and arrows. They got the compound bows now. We get a season for hunting with a bow. Now, how far can we stretch this and still be legal? And they're doing it with a black powder. Okay, we got a nice black powder season. Now, how far can we stretch this, shoot a modern gun, and still call it a muzzleloading gun? And that's what's going on right now. But eventually, just like the bow, traditional bows, recurve bows are coming back into focus. People are finally coming back to say, wait a minute now, this is not right. This is a sport. We don't have to go out there and kill something every time we go out. So that's why we call it a sport. We're not going to starve if we don't get it. So people are also coming back to the traditional muzzleloaders also.